I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, this is one waiting. I don't see any.
There's I see lots of people in the chat, Mary. So thanks for stopping by. Of course, this is an open chat, and you can talk about anything you'd like to talk about or ask any questions. I'm assuming many of you just watched the show. That was a hard one to do. I'm still sort of finding my way doing these shows. It's hard to find the right groove. You know, being a filmmaker, um, I tend to be very creative with it. I've had a tiny, tiny amount of people complain about having any background music at all, whether it was too loud or even if it wasn't, they don't like it at all. They want just to have it like it is right now. I mean, just looking at you and talking. And I've been in motion picture business for over 50 years now, and the entertainer in me and the person who worked all those years on so many great movies and television programs, just it's who I am. So but again, fortunately, 98% of you like what they're seeing, what's being done. And my glasses are crooked again, or is my head is crooked? Maybe I should mirror this camera. Maybe that's what it is, because I keep trying to straighten my head out and I keep going the wrong way. So there also have been a very tiny few people talking about how they can't afford to support us, that they cannot afford to subscribe to the Substack account or to the YouTube account. Everything we do is for free. And even on Substack, yes, they put a little things up that say you can join for certain amounts, but at the bottom of it, right there, is the free account. And it is totally free, and you get to see everything. And I don't post things just for people who are paying, because we don't have that many currently right now. Thank you, Mark, for the super sticker. All of you that are helping support us, that money goes to the studio. Mary and I have been here for 10 years. We have been paying the rent for this place with our Social Security. As you know, we had a flood that set us back a lot of money, medical problems, everything else in the world has, including my late wife's cancer, really ate a hole in the money that I used to have. And so we've been producing this show and doing all of this with our own money in our own time, which started off somewhat, part-time. But at this point, we get up at 5 in the morning. I make myself tea. I make Mary coffee. We sit down at the computers and we start working on the show. We work up to a certain point. We take a break. We do yoga, which we do every morning. And then we have meditation. And then I make breakfast. We take Nova for a walk. I go right back to work, and so does Mary. And we work till like 6 o'clock in the evening. It has become that busy, answering emails, talking to people who want to remain anonymous but just want to talk to somebody about this stuff. I know how hard that is to be alone with this. And we're doing all of this for free. YouTube, since the beginning, has been putting ads on our commercial on our shows, and we have no control over that. If you're not familiar with how YouTube works, we are now, and they will put ads on. And if you can't get monetized by them because you have to become a YouTube partner, they're going to have those ads there no matter what. We did get told we could be a partner, and recently we became a partner with YouTube, which is a big deal because it means that now we can monetize. And again, we use those funds to keep this show going. None of us are going to get rich off this. We're not going to be, driving fancy cars and buying mansions. We just simply want to keep doing this work and keeping it free for people to watch. Whether they can support or help support us or not, we will always do this work and put it up online for free. So I hope that clears up some of the misconceptions that have been going around with some of the commenters about that we're only doing this for money. I'm laughing because I think Mary just told me today, hey, we're up to $21 from the commercials that they've been running. So that obviously that'll increase. And in fact, if you actually leave the ads on and just let them play out, go get a sandwich, go to the bathroom, get some water, that's one way you can help support us without paying anything more than just your time to sit through those darn things. So I'm going to look over here at the comments and see what's being said. They're going by kind of fast. But if you have questions, you can ask. And if you, not more importantly, but if you have things you want to talk about that have happened to you, you want a little support there, a little bit of comfort, I think is the word I'm looking for. I know how much I needed that when I started back in 1989 with Yvonne Smith and went to the first support group meeting. I have experienced a great deal. I did see one gentleman say that he never heard of me in Canada. Well, I'm pretty sure they had sightings up there, and a lot of the shows that are on during the 90s, because I was speaking about the 90s era. So, plus you probably saw my movies, Ghostbusters, Fright Night, Star Trek. I worked on so many. So at one point or another, you did see my work and didn't even know it. So what are we talking about over here, guys? Yes, thank you, Catkins. We've got I'm in a CE5. Lots of us are doing CE5s. I see more than I thought. Yeah, I haven't done that. Of course, I have been on camping trips and astronomy trips where I wasn't looking for that to happen, and it happened, and it got up close and personal, and it caused problems with friendships. And I've had people experience things with me that 2 weeks later they didn't even remember, which is really disturbing. No, I didn't work on the 1989 The Blob. I worked on John Carpenter's The Thing, though. Does that count? that was an amazing movie. I don't normally like remakes, but that was a good one, and John Carpenter was great. But I never saw the remake of The Blob, and I hate to say that I didn't even know when it got made. So, and thank you for the $2. I really appreciate that. Chewy. Is that how we pronounce it? Chew? Yeah. Chewy. Thank you, Chewy. Thank you very, very much. The thing that got me into writing sci-fi, especially, was the practical effects. Yeah. There's nothing like practical effects. I did them for years. I mean, we made things physically in the shop, in the laboratory, and put them on the set and brought them to life. That was an incredible experience, and I'll never forget it. What was it? Thoughts was about, see if I was initiate contact. I've never tried initiating contact. I've never had to, but you know what? I really want to try that. I even have a night scope now on a very good camera, thanks to Mark Sims. And we've been talking about putting a CE5 together and having a group of us go up and see what we can make happen. So The Thing is my all-time favorite sci-fi horror film. The first one or both, because I love them both. Yes, we are planning on going out there with Mark Sims, and that has been yet to be scheduled. Right now would be rather frigid to go up to the mountains. It's been so cold. Carpenter's The Thing. That was that was a really hard show to do. I didn't work on all of it. I wasn't on location. I worked with Rob Bottin, who's headed up all those effects and designed them. He was a neat guy and a friend. Um, and I worked in the lab, and I did some of the puppeteering on the duck monster, as we called it, which is when the head detached and had the big long spider arms and hung from the duck, which is why we call it the duck monster. And Carpenter was great to work with. A lot of these guys, I think, that I've worked with, directors, Toby Hooper and others, they had an affinity for this subject. They knew there was something to it. They already found Steve, apparently. Yeah, they did. Why is it every time I do a podcast, my sinuses start up again? Whitley says that we're allergic to the visitors. He has terrible, terrible allergies, and I never used to, but they keep getting worse, and they seem to wax and wane. And I often wonder if it's not from our visitor friends. One thing that bothers me is I once told him to stop taking me. God, stuff goes by so fast. Other things happen. Not like that again. Now I wish I could have the experience again. I think I'd handle it better now. Yes, I've heard that before. And I know that people have reinitiated the contact. You just have to get talk to them. Mac tonight would visit me in the 1970s. Yeah, I made that character. I puppeteered that character with my late wife and the famous Bob Burns in the original Ghostbusters TV show for years. And I had a lot of people say that they were scared to death by that character to this day. So that was an amazing experience doing that character all those years. It made Doug Jones's career. What's a cult classic, Pancho? Which one? I'm missing something here. Can you tell me what that was? So I see you're talking about reconnection. When Jilly asked me to, no, when she demanded, I left the scene. She didn't even want me staying in touch with anybody, but I did. I stayed in touch with Whitley and Roger and Yvonne. But even though I stopped being visible on television and in the community at all, I mean, I went completely dark. It still kept going on, and I had to try to hide it from Jilly. So it was not a good thing. So what am I missing something? What film aged well? You mean you're talking about John Carpenter's The Thing. Well, John Carpenter, he's a great filmmaker. He has a lot of integrity, and he's an artist, and he does what he wants to do, and he doesn't really let Hollywood influence him much. I mean, he does a picture his way, or it doesn't get done. There are not a lot of directors that have done that, but I can think of a few. One of them, Stanley Kubrick, who's my mentor. He's one of my heroes. So he's had a big influence on my life. And what's interesting about that film, and I don't know if many of you have thought about it, or if many of you have even seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, but if you haven't, you need to go see it and watch it with this subject matter in mind, because there has never been a film that was more about the subject of human contact and evolutionary change via the visitors than the movie 2001, right down to the Star Child at the end of the film. So Mary's great. I mean, one of my First conversations I had with her was over. I guess it wasn't Zoom. It was, I forget what it was. It was another system we had. This was a 2013, and it was Skype. Yeah, it was a Skype call, and she was kind of talked me out of wanting to hook up with her. She says, "Well, I'm kind of weird, and I photograph things people don't usually look at." And I said, "Oh, that sounds great." She says, "Yeah, yeah." And my favorite holiday is Halloween. Well, I immediately fell in love then because Halloween I'll always loved more than Christmas or any other holiday. And thanks to Halloween and the things that happened to me, I had a very long and great career in Hollywood, making aliens and monsters, and even playing aliens. Because I was a Screen Actors Guild actor, I'm still SAG. I still get a pension from them for all the commercials I did, and you never know that I was doing it because you didn't see me. Same way in Ghostbusters, I was inside some of those creatures, and I was doing the puppeteering and stuff. So I'm very grateful to Halloween, and I miss it every year because the last few years we haven't really been able to do much with it, especially with all the things that have been going on. So I'm hoping that this year is the year that I can make myself up as Frankenstein at long last and enjoy Halloween. So Mac triggered something in me. He was a bit spooky because of the memories he triggered, but I really liked him. I still have his figurine. Wow. Yeah, I recently gave away the molds to the head. I still know where they are. Halloween is your favorite. Yeah, I would imagine for a lot of us, it's and when I say us, you know what I mean. Uh, it's a favorite. It's magical. It's uh, it's wonderful to dress up or make yourself up or create something and be that being, whatever it may be, for that evening. And I always thought that Halloween should be like Christmas. We should have the 7 days of Halloween. Um, and spend more time with it. When I was a kid, and it was just over so quick. It was just it was sad. I wanted to keep going on with it. So if we had 7 days leading up to it and had special things we did every day for it, I think that would be really neat. So certainly you must have some questions. I talked about some things tonight that I haven't talked about before, and I think probably one of the real critical ones. There's a book that Whitley wrote called "Solving the Communion Enigma." If you haven't read it, read it. It's really different from the other books on the subject in a way. But I was keeping something to myself, and that was the whole bit with being taken at night from my house, the flat where we lived on 47th Avenue, to Lafayette School. And there were other times that happened too in the daytime, and I was taken to doctors, and I thought it must be just a fantasy, or maybe it was just a nightmare. I don't know what, but when I read the Solving the Communion Enigma, Whitley was talking about very much the same thing. And then when I talked to other people, they talked about it too. Our people, the people inside our government, were taking us to find out what we knew, what was being done to us. And they were being very stealthy about how they did it too. And in some cases, I think that the parents were actually involved too. And I don't know if mine were or not, but has anybody else here run into that? As far as I know, it's not being done now. Not really. At least not that I know of. Maybe some of the younger people here could tell me. But I know back in the 50s, it certainly was. Anybody? I mean, it was very disconcerting to find yourself in school in your pajamas, standing in your school hallway in the dark with just little lights lit up just so you could see inside there, and being taken into rooms by nurses, and there's doctors there, and they would poke and prod you and take blood and stick needles in your arm and stuff, and then they stick you in a room with a bunch of other kids and show you films of very disturbing things, and try to find out and study your reaction to try to find out how you would respond to the very things they were showing you. And like I said, the ones who stayed completely still and collected were the ones they took the most interest in. Interest in. Maybe they do, but this really wasn't about tracking. This was about really getting in there with you physically this was during the 50s for me. Remember, I'm 72, and this was 58, 59, 60-ish, right in there. Um, it was really disturbing. It was a really frightening thing to have happen to you. So yeah. Of course, the other thing I talked about was my memory of being in the crib and having that being looking at me. And this was all before the experience uh, with the bright lights coming in my room and stuff. By that time, I was about 6 years old. And these events are all spaced apart somewhat. And when you're a kid, you don't know what to make of them, and you don't know if they're real driven, vivid dreams or fantasies or what, until later on in life, when you look back on them and you say, oh my God, I just read Communion and I read some other books, and I don't know these people, and they never heard me talk about this stuff. So how do they know the same thing? So maybe there's something to this. Yeah, they may have enough information, and they may even be the ones that are putting implants in us. It was in the 1990s. My late wife used to work the Renaissance Fair. She had a booth out there. She served trifle, British. She was a Brit, so she did traditional trifle and had this big booth, and she loved doing the fair. I would usually stay home with the dogs and take care of the house while she went out there. And more than one occasion, things happened. She would leave sometimes the night before, sometimes she'd leave Saturday morning. And this occasion, she left Saturday morning, and it wasn't long after she left that I was looking out the window, and these cars pulled up. And this woman got out and a man, and they started coming towards the house. I thought, who the heck is this? So they knocked on the door. And I'm in my bathrobe, and I reluctantly opened the door up and said, yes, can I help you, kind of thing. I'm very cautious. And the one guy kind of looked like David Jacobs. The other one was this woman, and she was holding a baby. And she looked very familiar to me, a friend of our family, but it wasn't her. I knew it wasn't her, and I knew it wasn't really David Jacobs. And I kind of tried to keep from coming in and get rid of him. And the guy that looked like David Jacobs looked at me and said, come on, Steve, you read all my books. You know who I am. And they kind of pushed on the door, and they were very strong. And as they pushed the door open and they got to me, by the time they put my hands on me, I was under their control. I could not resist what they were doing. They marched me into the bedroom, and they laid me face down on the bed, and they pulled up my robe. And I remember them putting their hands on my back, and that's the last thing I remember. And I know that some of you have read Communion, and it sounds very similar to something that happened to Whitley, and it happened more than once. And I really questioned whether or not they did something to me with an implant. But what really got me is that they looked like people I knew. I didn't know if it was our own people and they had the ability to appear looking like someone else, or if it was the visitors themselves or someone else altogether interested in what was going on. That did happen. Sign me up for a Communion replica. Well, I used to make those, and in fact, it's kind of funny. We put I did a painting back in the 90s and made t-shirts that had Communion on them, and some people still have them. In fact, Whitley has a few left. Now, I had his permission. He owns the rights to this image. So I decided that I'd make a poster of it, a small one, available of that painting. And YouTube took it down because they said I didn't have the right to do that. To call Whitley and have him deal with them is a lot to ask because he won't get anywhere. They're so messed up with their bots and everything they got going on that I don't know how they would be convinced that he was really Whitley and that he'd given me permission. But this bust, you can see the size of it. I made a lot of these and Whitley signed it. In fact, there's a picture somewhere on one of my websites that shows him signing these, and I sold them for quite a while. And I took them offline. I'm not selling it. It's a lot of work because I have to get out these molds and I got to pour up latex very, very thick so it won't rot, so last a long time. Or I pour it out of resin. And as I get older, it's getting harder and harder to handle molds and work with heavy things and work with chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So I have discovered the 3D printer, and I've got a resin printer, and I've got also a PLA printer, was what they call PLA printers. You can print all kinds of different material with it, but it's a filament type. So I'm considering printing some busts, and so I don't have to pour stuff and finishing them off and painting them and offering those. The problem is making them affordable. You have to realize that I might spend a day or two putting one of those together and doing a lot of physical work, filling, sanding, painting, glazing the eyes, mounting it on a base, and then we have to ship it. So Mary and I are trying to figure out how we can make these but still make them affordable. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. And pieces of original art like that tend to cost a lot of money. So I ordered the poster and love it. You ordered a communion poster or that piece of art?
You can.
Yeah, I know. It's on the I'm talking to Mary. It's on the site. It's not on. They show it on YouTube, but they took the picture down because that's what the bots do. It's really not a person doing that. Yeah, the poster. It's not a person doing it. It's a bot. So it sees that and it compares it with everything it sees on the internet. And it sees Whitley Screever's book cover and it says he can't sell that. He doesn't own that, but I do have the right to sell it. They don't know it because it was verbal. Whitley, has never been questioned by anyone about it. But if they were to question him, he said, "Well, yeah, I told Steve he could do that, and I'm the owner of that image," and he is. He has the original painting in his room he uses for Dreamland, the podcast, and it's very tiny. It's only about that big, and it's incredible. I talked to him recently about recreating that in oil exactly the way the artist had done it, and then making those available, and he could have those when he's at conferences or conventions. That might happen. We got a lot of going on. I mean, we do the shows. We just taped a show Wednesday with Bruce Solheim, which I'm editing now. It's back there behind me. You can see just barely back there. It's at the edit bay. We have Casey coming up tomorrow, who she works with crystals, and when she photographs first of all, she has contact with entities, and they come through these enormous crystals she has, and she's able to take pictures of them. And she's coming here tomorrow, and we're going to be shooting her. So I've got Bruce's edit to finish. I got to start on hers. Yvonne Smith is bringing someone from a new member in her group from New York who's coming out here pretty soon. We have Mary's podcast, which she started reading the letters that we get, which is I just think it's amazing. I love listening to those because hearing these firsthand accounts, it doesn't matter if you don't know who the real person is. You didn't in the comedian letters either, because these people want to stay anonymous, which proves they have nothing to gain. That they're just honestly telling the story. And it's amazing. So we have that. We have more live chats coming up. We're going to be doing after the show on Saturday premiere, like we're doing right now. We have the Friday night with the guests, and I know I'm overlooking something, but we're also we're also putting out an art book. So many who have said how much you enjoyed the artwork I did back in the 80s and more recently in the last few years, and I'm doing new stuff all the time. That we're going to put it all in a book. That's really, it's not a hardback. It's a softback. It's kind of comic book sized, and it's like an illustrated novel, as they call them, or illustrated story. That's going to be available. And then after that, I'm going to start making a series based on my drawings that's called Breaking the Silence stories, where I'm going to be putting what the things that have happened to me all through my life and the stuff that I worked with Yvonne on into sort of a comic book, but more of a, the word comic book is, it's not funny and it's not comic. It's, it's not like Batman and Robin. It's just illustrations and story about the things that happened to me. And if I run out of material there, hopefully people will come forward enough I can do it with that as well. We have a lot of things planned because I'm not working in the industry anymore. I mean, I am, because I'm still producing film, which is the thing I love doing the most. After doing practical effects and working behind the camera, for years and years, and sometimes in front of it because I would play the creatures. But the main reason I got into film was because I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's completely changed my life. And I was in high school and I wanted to become a filmmaker. So I come to Hollywood. I get to make one major film that I wrote and produced called The Day Time Ended. Horrible title. It was not my title. My title was Vortex. But the people with the money wanted it to be changed to The Day Time Ended. And the film did very well. But I never really got to do another film after that. And I kept trying to over the years. But, they're very expensive, and everybody would read your script and they'd want to mangle it and make it their own. And so it just never happened. So here we are today with all this technology we have. And I'm just young enough to take advantage of it still. And so I'm going to be making a lot more films. And the next film we're doing is the Double Slit Experiment, which is based on my experiences and also what I'm kind of seeing as I look forward with all of this. But again, this is not a documentary. It's another film, like but something is there. The Dream Time and Conversation with My Father. So good night, Chewy, and thank you again for the I think you gave us a sticker, right? Or a super sticker. I can't remember. I'm not completely familiar with them yet. So
Yeah.
yes. I remember 2001 quite well. I didn't come home for a couple of years. Yeah, we do have another chat tomorrow night, and that's for our subscribers on Patreon to come in and share with us their stories or talk to me and have me go on at length about things that happened to me. So, oh, you're still here, Chewy. Okay. Well, I see a lot of you are checking out. It's up to you if we keep this going on or not. If you have more questions to ask or more stories you'd like to hear, or if you have things you want to share yourself, let me know. I need to watch. Where'd that go? I need to watch 2001 with the visitors in mind. Yeah, you do. And when you watch that film with that in mind, it's really going to blow your mind. Like, why didn't I see that before? I was very lucky to get to know people that worked with Kubrick. One of them was Gary Lockwood. He was played Poole, who got killed by Hal. That was the greatest experience of his life, being in that film, he told me. And he used to come and visit us here all the time. The other one is Dan Rector, who played Moonwatcher. And he actually came here, and I wish I had that picture ready to show you, but I will next time. He actually came to our studio to do a podcast, and he saw the Moonwatcher mask I made, and he asked to put it on. And, you know, I went right back to being 16 years old and sitting in the theater and watching that amazing movie and wondering how they did those Australopithecus and how they made them so real. And here I was with a replica that I had made and the actual guy that played it. And I got to hear all the stories about working with Kubrick, and they were all wonderful. Kubrick was an amazing guy. Nova detonated some of her toys. That's why Mary's saying, "Oh no," she's picking up fuzzy stuff all over from the other room. So, but that was amazing, and just, you know, and making the space station from 2001, which you can see it just behind me back there. And you guys saw that in the film tonight, and that was made because Adam Savage called me up and said, "Hey, I just volunteered you to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. You got 7 weeks to build a big space station from 2001. Can you do it?" I told him you could. No one else could do it. And I was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to do that?" That was a pretty long story, but I did it, and it stayed at the museum for half a year, and they sent it back to me. I got paid for it, and I got to keep it, which was pretty neat. Also back there is Moonwatcher and a Star Child. Adam has one and I have one both. So the experience I barely remember because I was so many years ago. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, with me, it's the ones I had where I consciously remember pretty much everything that happened, or just never left me. You know, like the one I haven't shown yet in the show where I spent time with my grandmother and step grandfather up in a town called Bernie, and some amazing things happened there that will be really nice to do and film and bring that back to life. But I remember every single detail about it, about how we were stopped in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere, by men in silver hard hats and taken out of the car, and they were floated out like Barney and Betty Hill, unconscious. It was really, really something. The dream time was fantastic. Let's see, maybe one of the most accurate experiencer video I had seen. That was a very weird thing. I mean, coming to and sitting next to Hitler, and that's why, you know, I had that experience, and that's why I made the film. So I thought, you know, I got to do something with this because it's just so unique. But I appreciate that you like that film. No, I've never been brought to Michigan. I've flown over it several times, but I've never been brought to Michigan. So a lot of commotion going on in the other room. I'm going to close the door again. We are still staying at the studio. We have been here going on 2 months. We're really getting tired of it. But we looked at the house today, and it looks like a house again. So by the end of next week, they should be done, and we should be able to move back the week after. Like a mammoth 80-foot triangle. There's been a lot of discussion about those being the TR3B. And I was talking to Whitley about that, and he said, well, that's very interesting because in the book, it wasn't them. I mean, I think it was the Greys, where he coined that term. Basically, the Greys was a fictional book. And Whitley and I both do fictional stuff based on our experiences too, but he made that up, and it kind of got out there. And the next thing you knew, the triangles were something made by our government. Now, some of these things are absolutely massive because, like you described, an 80-foot one. I've had other people describe multiples of them that were big as football fields, and I just find it real hard to believe, being an aviator and being around aerospace people. for a very long time in my life. I know how things work, and we do not develop top secret aircraft and then fly them over populated areas because they're supposed to be top secret. And the idea is to keep the enemy in the dark about what we have, and you're not doing that if you fly over. Um, the other interesting thing is too is that there have been lots of pictures and video shot of them, but in most cases, people are so, as I have been, just jaw dropping and looking at what I'm seeing that you don't even think to grab the camera until it's already too late. I see a big no. Yeah, I don't really. I mean, it's possible that we do have something like it that we have tested. I've heard about people seeing one escorted up by Edwards Air Force Base, but it did make noise. It had a jet engine sound to it, and it was floating along, and there were planes pacing it, and it just didn't. It looked like a big triangle, but it wasn't. It's technology. It did have thrusters, and it was making noise, but I'm just finding it hard to believe. It doesn't mean that we don't have it, but just for me personally, just me, I have a problem with that we have something that quiet, that big. Um, I don't know. I do know Whitley did write that in his book, so about the TR-3B. So that's kind of where that designation for that aircraft started. The triangle I saw at the end of "But Something Is There," it was breathtaking because I had never seen one quite like that before. When Mary and I were first spending time together and dating, we drove across this road we go across quite often coming from here back to the house, and it's very dark. It's near the ocean. It was late at night, and yes, a triangle flew over. We knew it was a triangle by the shape, by the lights. Um, but that one that night, I could see the actual shape of it, and I saw the way it rippled and materialized kind of out of a glow. And when it flew over, it was so silent, and the little lights at each corner were twinkling. They were kind of rippling, and there it was, the cell phone in my hand. Not that it would have got a good picture of it; it wouldn't have. It was dark, but I just wanted to keep watching it, and I'm talking to Whitley, and I'm saying, I just can't believe, you won't believe what I'm seeing right now. I mean, it was exasperating. Whitley and I have seen a few things together, and we've had some interesting experiences because we spent so much time together back during the 90s, including knocking out streetlights. So stars and night vision. I recorded a triangle at night vision. It's on my channel. Well, send us an email or a link or something so we can go and take a look at that. We'd love to see it. Thank you, Stars and Night Vision. Huh. Guy, that's amazing. Yeah, now that's interesting. I've seen that on discs, that sort of orange. In fact, if you look at some of my old drawings, my old artwork that in that opening that I have for Friday Night Show, you'll see me in the backyard as a very young child with one of the grays. That's my grandmother's backyard in Marin County. When looking up, we see this black thing coming across, and then it lights up. And more than once, I would see this sort of sphere underneath it with this purpley, orangey red like energy coming from it. And I have heard that described on the triangles as well. There were ribs on the bottom, looked like. Glad you are still with us, Guy. Yeah, terrifying. I go back and I think about, especially when I was young, seeing some of these things close up and personal, and I was so exhilarated, so excited. I didn't know if I was feeling terrified or if I was just so excited I felt like I could pass out and have a heart attack. Um, it's just an amazing thing, to see that. I lived in Pacifica later on after we moved from San Francisco. My mom bought a house up on the hill there, and it was right under a Nike base. How about that? I knew that because I used to see them pop up out of the ground every so often, and then they'd go back under again. They'd be disguised by brush and things on top, uh, grass. Um, there's still remnants of it there today. If you go and look at Pacifica, California, and you look at Sharp Park, uh, is where I was. There's Oceana High School there, and it's sort of boomerang shaped or half moon shaped. And up on that hill there is where the Nike base was, and it was very active during the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff. And we'd be in the schoolyard, my grammar school down below, and see them popping up. And that night, one night, I came to standing on the porch looking at this hat-shaped light moving around very slowly and then coming down the face of the hill. Now, there's no roads there. There's no way a car could drive that, not even Jeep. And I knew what I was seeing. And my mom got very upset with me and told me to go back to bed. And there's no UFOs. And she got all mad. And the next day she threw a newspaper at me. She said, that UFO you saw last night, it's in the newspaper. That's all she would say. She was always quiet about this stuff. Yeah, you kind of shake apart afterwards. 4 women disappeared for an hour. MUFON has reports. Where was that? What lady was my best friend at work? James. James, disappeared for 45 minutes. They were gonna call the police on him. Another person that's in our support group here, and he's going to come forward shortly. Same thing happened to him when he got back from a bike ride. The whole town was looking for him, the police and everything, and he couldn't figure it out because he didn't think he had been gone that long. There are people, the one that I'm talking to, and she wants to remain anonymous to protect her job. But I've known this person since the 90s, and she definitely has these experiences. Well, she got a sleep number bed. How many of you are familiar with the sleep number bed? I didn't know that the bed records when you leave the bed. And so if you get up to go to the bathroom, it'll say you left the bed at 2 a.m. You were gone for 3 minutes or whatever it takes, and then you come back. But in her case, it's showing that she's left for 2 hours, and she has no memory of it whatsoever. And be at the bed, that's what was recorded. Now, maybe it was a software glitch or something, but it's happened more than once. So they I used to sell mattresses. Well, what an amazing thing. I think more people find out about this are going to, if they can afford them, are going to want to buy one of these beds to find out if they're being abducted or not. You have got to have a sense of humor about this stuff. And there's a lot of people out there, and even I was a stuffed shirt in the 90s. People made fun of this stuff. I don't anymore. If I did, I would never be able to watch something like Resident Alien. As much as it pokes fun at all this stuff, it also has a heart about it. It's very visible. It's really there. And so I think it's really important. So that is funny about the mattress. There's also a watch, and I used to have one, and I'm thinking about getting one again, that records the altitudes that you're at. So if you drive up a mountain and you're up 1,000 feet or something, it'll actually show that, but also make a recording of it so you can look back on it and see how you went up and down in elevation in your trip or your bike ride or whatever. And I know people that have been going to sleep with those watches on, and the altitude shows that they went up several hundred feet or several thousand feet, and it's amazing. And no one's saying, yeah, but it's an explanation as to why that's happening. I'm sure the skeptics would say, well, it's just a malfunction. It's kind of like I was looking at stuff about web today, and they were saying, it can make mistakes and optical illusions, and we can't trust everything it's telling us, and that's very convenient, I think. So I'm glad I bought a purple mattress. Strieber's The Key is one of the most terrifying books on the subject. Really, what was everyone been reading lately? Well, I want to talk about The Key. This is something that I wanted to turn into a film, but Whitley, I don't I don't know if that can be done or not. I mean, a lot of his stuff he's sold the rights to, because, to do this work, you got to have income. And so, the studios will give you lots of money, and then they'll sit on it. And like they've sat on the Grays for years. They pay him, I think, every year for the rights to it, and it pays well, but yet they're not making the film. And so I don't know if that's something to be done, but I wasn't frightened by it. If you're referring to what the little guy was talking about, what was in store for us in the future, yeah, that's pretty terrifying. But I thought it was a great book. It's a real gem. And if you haven't read The Key, it's short, it's great. It's on Amazon. I think all his books are sold through Amazon now, but he also has a website, a great one called Unknown Country, which I have a lifelong membership to, thanks to Whitley. And it's a great place to go. And you can get all his books there. And also you can watch Dreamland, which the first hour of the show is free, and the second hour is for paid subscribers. So, and that's so he can keep things going too, because nobody can really do this stuff or anything for free forever when you spend this much time with it. And Whitley works around the clock. He gets up, he's doing this, he's asleep, and he's doing this. Especially lately, it's been there've been a lot of things happening with him. Am I missing anything here? Isn't serving? I forgot. They do that, but the rights, and they sit on them until the creator is dead, and then well, that's I'm grateful to Hollywood. I'm grateful to Roger Corman and Francis Coppola and a lot of other people I've worked for, Gene Roddenberry especially, most of all. But overall, Hollywood, as you know from watching Fire in the Sky, and even if you read Communion, you saw the movie they made, they just have to screw it up. There's another word for it, but I won't say it here. We try to keep this family friendly. So I had beams of blue light around my house twice, 4 times a night. Thanks, twice. Unresponsive. What are these things? You had beams of blue light around your house twice in 4 nights in 2012. Well, I don't know for sure, but I've experienced those blue beams, as many of us, of light in being non-responsive many times. And for me personally, it was related to the visitors. I call them the visitors for lack of a better description. I really don't feel comfortable using the word alien. I don't like the term alien abduction, really. But if you don't use it in the tags and use it in general, then that's kind of the lore, and people, it just doesn't have the same effect as non-human intelligence or the visitors. But Whitley's the one that coined that term. And so that stuff I would relate to the visitors. And what are these things? Well, the lights, the beams of light, they usually come from a craft. Although sometimes those lights can be detached from the craft and they get inside your house, and they're not coming through the window necessarily. They're in the house. So it's a very interesting noise I'm hearing. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. There's a very odd noise, though. Yes, it was blue daylight. Well, it's sort of an arc welder blue, is what I call it. Well, we're also crossbred with the Neanderthal. There's been a lot of evidence for that. I woke up. This is my last story for tonight. We've been doing this for about an hour now. And there are people stomping up. It's Sunday, and there's many units here, and there's somebody stomping up the stairs in the unit next to me. Very interesting. Anyway, I woke up, was in bed with Jilly, my late wife, and there was a blue light. I could see it to the window and to our bedroom, and it was moving across the sky. And you could also hear jet engines. And I leaped out of bed to take a look at it. And of course, right away, Jilly reacted to it and said, "It's not what you think it is. You could hear the engines." Yeah, I could hear the engines of probably an F-18 dispatched at a Point Magoo. I knew the sound of the engines, and I knew what those General Electric engines sounded like, and the fact that there's two of them, not one like there is in an F-16. But I got to the window, and I'm watching the blue light, very bright, arc welder blue. It's this amazing glowing thing, and here comes a jet on its coattails. And then they both went out of frame. Now, at this point, I'm asking myself, why didn't I go outside in the backyard and watch more? No, I went back to bed. And then I woke up again, and it was coming back the other way. And I got to the window, looking at it, and the blue ball just suddenly got really bright, and it skipped across the sky like skipping a rock on water. And then it stopped, and it became daylight, but blue-white daylight. It lit up everything. It lit up the bedroom, everywhere. This is in Granada Hills. I mean, somebody else had to have seen this, yet it was never reported. It wasn't the first time I saw this happen, and it was gone. And then the jet turned around and kind of went back to wherever it came from. Of course, there were other odd things that happened that night, and I had memory of it, and I had memory of being in there was a studio attached to this house in Granada Hills where I did my work for film, and I was back there with people talking to me in the middle of the night. Next morning, we're at the breakfast table. My mother-in-law was staying with us from England. She had stayed in one of our guest room, and it was right near the studio part of the house. And she came to the table. Everyone was really quiet that morning. She sat down. She said, "What was all that noise? Who are those people you were talking to last night?" And I remember the look on my wife's face, and she looked at me and she darted her eyes and went like this, like, "Don't you say a thing." This place is crazy. And I didn't, but it was kind of a confirmation that what went on that night registered with her. So, but it was that blue light you spoke of, and I saw them a lot, especially during the 80s before I really knew what was going on with me. Didn't know what it was. Yeah, sure. There wasn't even a cricket. Well, see, Guy, when these events occur, that's what happens. It's like time just stops. That's why there's this sort of a vacuum. There's no sound. And the minute that it stops, the wind, the air will move again. The little cricket will start again. Spielberg did it in his film, Close Encounters. He knows. And so, and you hear dogs start to bark, and you hear the streets again, and cars just start driving by again. And it's happened to me numerous times with witnesses, and then they don't remember, most of them. So, well, yeah, of course we do. I mean, the double slit experiment, which is my next film, gets into that because we have found that our observation of particles and atoms are influenced by our consciousness. I think there's a lot to that. And I think it also has a lot to do with why each of us individually has a different reality unique to ourselves. And so, as human beings, we can be very frustrated when we're trying to communicate with people that don't have this exactly the same reality as you do. It can be very hard to work with. And I think it's caused a lot of problems. Quantum physics, yes, that was quantum physics was laughed at in the 80s. Boy, did that change, huh? Wave versus particles. Huh. I see that sort of in a visual sense. I see I see our consciousness as a wave affecting those particles. And going back up to the comments to see if there's anything I missed. It's getting close for me to it's Mary's birthday and we need to put her feet up. It's been a long day. We worked all day on her birthday on the show on what we're doing right now. So yes, observer effect. Yep, it's true. Consciousness really changes reality, really has an effect on it more than any other thing. I mean, it has to, because we're the ones seeing the reality all around us. I don't know if rocks have a consciousness. It said they do, but I know we do. Okay, I got to spend time with the dumb family joking. Good night. Good episode. Thank you. Thank you, MX. Buddy, I just woke up from a nap and opened up YouTube, and this thing was on. Well, what do you know? I'm glad you could join us, Sky. The universe has an idea. Construct. The rocks have conscience are usually stone. You're you're welcome, Chris. Thanks for the support tonight and the stickers and that stuff. It really helps. It goes a long way to keeping all this going on, and making new shows and getting new people to come on. And of course, the more support we get, the more elaborate we can get. The more guests we can get, the more things we can do, like go on to CE5, record the whole thing and turn it into an episode and share it with you. So it's really appreciated, all your support. Wow, Guy, that's something. Let me know if you have the engineering of any software. Well, thank you. You know, we're using all kinds of stuff like Unreal Engine, Blender, DaVinci, full Adobe suite. Recently, I started using Pica. Oh, what's that? Oh, thank you. Cheers. Oh, wow, that's really nice. And you're welcome, Guy. And so we're using a lot of software. I mean, I started in software working with 3D effects as far back as, well, geez, the 80s. And of course, in the 90s, when towers got to be more substantial, I got to work with Lightwave as an early Lightwave user, and I've worked with just, you name it, I've worked with it all. And I'm really finding Unreal Engine a huge help. I don't like the AI stuff as much, but considering to keep up with the Joneses, as it would be said, I have to be able to produce more video more quickly. And AI helps for a lot of static imagery and animation I need. But all the stuff you saw with the being standing over the mother in bed and placing the glowing ball into her and all that stuff, that all done by hand by me using Unreal Engine and Blender. So you're still tripping on the fact I designed. I didn't actually design Mac Tonight. Mac Tonight, the ad agency design, they gave me a really nice piece of artwork of it. And then I went ahead and cast Doug Jones's head and sculpted a big clay mask and made molds and produced it out of foam rubber so that we could move the face and stuff. That was the part that I did. And then, of course, we did all the acting, all the puppeteering on it, making the face move and stuff. So Amigas, yes, Amigas and toasters. Make myself some toast. Dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to have to sign off, and I really appreciate you all. We love you a great deal, and I really love your involvement and participation in everything we're doing. And you really are the very, very fabric that makes Breaking the Silence something very worthwhile to Mary and I. Thank you so much. And well, we'll see you tomorrow night, and of course next Friday, and so on and so forth. We'll be around, and be sure to watch the community section. And thanks again for your support. Good night, you guys.